Hello everyone, this is Daniel and welcome back to another video. So, these videos are always a little bit difficult to start. I never really know what to say, but the video today will be a little bit different from usual. Usually I upload tutorials on this channel, but those take a lot of time to produce and there's a lot of preparation involved. And that has always really prevented me from uploading more frequently here on my channel. But I wanted to change something about that and give people more insight into the little projects that I do in my free time and talk just about how I go about improving as an artist. So I would like to try to make these videos now more often, where I just go through some of the recent projects that I've been making and describe to you sort of my thought process, or just, in general, show you what I've been making. And dive right into it. The first sort of thing that I want to show you is a challenge that I've been making or doing. This is already 2 months ago, actually, at this point. Basically, I wanted to see what would happen if I sculpted one head every single day for a whole month. I'll just go through the pictures now, and just so you know, not all of them will be great. I really only spent about 1 to 3 hours on each of them. But through the month, you might be able to see some differences. So, this is an early start. I didn't spend too much time on this one. But as we move through days, this is now, I think, day 5 or so. Basically, my aim was to try to create interesting faces with some very recognizable characteristics that have just an appeal from a design perspective. I've never been a really good designer, to be honest. I'm more of a technical artist, and that's one of the things that I want to change the most just recently. So you see, I try lots of different types, and to be honest, these two are actually two of my favorites. So the challenge actually became really tough after some time. It was about around here after 1 week where I started to be really exhausted by this, because you have to keep in mind I actually still have a normal job, full-time job, where I work 40 hours per week as a 3D artist, and I do these sculpts sort of after work, coming home. So I'm really not always in the best shape doing these, but I was doing my best. So I tried some different styles as well, not to only do realistic work, but to also try something more, very stylized with lots of edges and stuff like that. But all in all, you see, it's just one face after another. This is another one I kind of liked. It has sort of, it feels very designed. It has an atmosphere to it. I wanted to try something with, different silhouette. That was my main goal here, and I really emphasized the different regions in the face, the different shapes. But the days after that were not so good. Oh, actually, not true. This is probably, in the end, my most favorite sculpt out of those 30 sculpts that I created in this month. I can't exactly say what I like so much about it. I think maybe it comes down just to the design itself. It's just a very good looking design, in my opinion. I mean, the others are pretty cool too, such as this one, but this is just a design that I like a lot. Anyway, moving forward, some of them not so good. I tried to play around a little bit with the light at this point, just to do something different. And I did also post this during this challenge on my account, where I wanted to show that I think a lot about sort of the directionality of my sculpts. So usually I would do brush strokes along these lines and focus on these different shapes. That's just something I wanted to point out to some of my viewers. And I think this is now halfway through the challenge, maybe a bit more, 2/3 through the 30-day challenge of making one face every single day. And at this point, I felt that I had gained a lot of confidence with creating faces. I didn't really improve all that much in areas like design or just generally quality, because all of these sculpts are just 1 hour or 2 hours or 3 hours maybe at most. So there's really not enough time to find something new that would give me a breakthrough in improving my quality. But on the other hand, I started to feel very comfortable with my way of creating faces. And yeah, I then had to just do something different because it was just already so repetitive, and also the exhaustion that got me at this point where I had to take a little bit of a break. You see that the quality in these couple of days really wasn't too good. I'm really not happy with these. And this was just, you know, a point where I just felt like nothing looked good, and I wanted to do something completely different to just get a fresh mind. I guess it worked a little bit, as quality improved a little bit after that. I also started to add a bit of color. Initially, I avoided color because I wanted to focus on shape alone, and it's always easy to make something look a lot better just by giving it color. But I wanted to make it look good even without the color. But you know, in the end, I just added color. So here's some more sculpts, and I'll just skip now to the end. These are now the last 2 sculpts that I did, this time with color, also doing some more design stuff. But yeah, that's all for this challenge. 1 month has passed. The last sculpt isn't really the best out of the 30. I can say, you know, as a conclusion, that doing 1 sculpt a day for 30 days will not make a huge difference. I believe that it makes much more sense to have a better balance out of doing many little studies where you just get used to a new technique, for example, and then it's necessary to also do some sort of long projects where you very, very carefully look into every detail and try to push yourselves to your limits, because only in those projects you really figure out new things that really give you this breakthrough where you will improve your quality as an artist, or at least that's how I see it. So let's get that out of the way and move on to the next thing that I want to share with you, which is now, you know, I did this challenge, 30 days, 1 head, and just like I described right now, it was time to do something that's more long-term, something where I will really look into detail and try to push myself to the limit. So it became my goal after this to create sort of a finished render anyway, and something that had, you know, a nice composition with characters, with background, with good lighting, technically well done, something that I can put in my portfolio, and something that will allow me to push myself to the limit. And as I mentioned before, personally, the areas that I wanted to develop my skills the most in at the moment are design and, well, other than that, just characters in general, and presentation, I believe, is also one important to mention. So with that in mind, I began to look for a theme, and you know, I've never been really good at this, coming up with something to create a thing. So it was a challenge for me. And there's hundreds of topics that you could pick up as an artist. So how do you decide? I feel that this is something I talked about on Twitter as well. If you're learning to become a technical artist, and you know, your goal is basically to find an optimal technical solution to a problem, it makes a lot of sense to learn as many techniques as possible and to have a very good overview so that you can find the best answer. But when it comes to concept art and creative work, there's just no limit to the amount of possibilities, and there's no better or worse as well. You could make any idea the best if you know, invest in it. So how do you decide? And I think, or at least the strategy that I'm trying with this, is just to take a leap of faith. I just pick a topic that I, you know, feel comfortable with. I feel that I can have motivation with this topic for a longer time, and then I commit to it. I kind of like to compare that a little bit to a relationship, because I feel it's the same thing with people. I mean, you could always make the argument that there somewhere in the world there will be someone who is even a better match for you, who will be even a better friend for you. But at some point, it's not about whether that person is the best you can ever meet. It's more about committing to a person and then just staying with them and you know, creating a trust and a good relationship. So anyway, maybe I didn't put that in the best words, but I decided that I want to go with the theme of airships. I've always liked the aesthetics of these fantasy world airships with those European ornamented details. So I created some initial sketches of that. I wanted to focus a lot on the visual composition, which is something I couldn't really do a lot in the past because I was too focused on characters. And so I did this interior where I had a little bit of a story in mind, where this is a very beautiful looking airship with lots of ornaments, so, you know, high class ship. But then I wanted to do some sort of rough looking characters, some pirates in there, where the story would be that maybe the pirates had taken over the ship or something like that. So I created this sketch and I was very happy with it, and I moved forward with that and started to create this in 3D and also giving it some color. One thing I learned when doing this is that it's very challenging to actually move from 2D art to 3D because perspective and such is never really 100% accurate in my 2D sketch, just because maybe I'm not that good at it, I guess. But the thing is, I very carefully sort of designed the silhouettes and everything in here. So I didn't really want the negative space and such to change in the render, but that is something I couldn't avoid. So you can see, for example, that this line ended up being like this, which changes the composition a lot. So going from this to this is actually really hard. So I assume that in future this will be a back and forth where I try to, I have to find a good composition that works both in 2D and 3D. Anyway, moving forward here, just some different renders. I started now at this point to think about what the character would look like in the scene. And this is when I realized that the composition that I had created was really meant for just the background itself and not for a character. I just downloaded this model from BlendSwap to play around a little bit with poses and such, and pretty quickly I realized that there was no good way of presenting the character in the scene. Of course I could have had the character smaller in the background, that would have looked good, but then I kind of would miss the point. I wanted to have a character very prominently in the foreground. That was sort of my main point, since my focus is on character art anyway. So I kind of ended up scrapping this idea as a whole. I still wanted to stick with the theme of airship because, as I said, there is a certain level of commitment to this project. I'm not just going to throw it away entirely. I'm just going to continue to work with it and find a compromise that works. So I started to work on different sketches, different compositions. This time I started with the characters in the front. Here's another attempt where I didn't really get far. But then there is the most recent one. This is actually the one that I've now decided to go with, where the sketch itself is still pretty rough, and it's probably not very clear what this all means at this point. But I'm very happy with this personally, because on the one hand, finally it's actually visible that this is an airship, since if you just show the interior, it's actually surprisingly hard to convey what this is from the outside. So by putting this scene on sort of a balcony and having lots of floating islands and airships in the background, this really fulfills this one goal of conveying this message of airships. Furthermore, I also placed the characters very, very prominently on this composition, where if I spend now a lot of time, when I invest lots of time to create this character, it will actually pay off because people can actually see it and appreciate the detail. I'm also very happy with sort of the how do I put this best? There is a certain dynamic that is created between the characters by the placement and by the posture of these characters, which is something that's not too visible just yet, but with the thing that I'm planning anyway, where they have a certain expression, a certain posture, especially the direction where the head is, where they're looking at, is going to play a huge role. This is something I want to play with to get the expression right, where this main character has a lot of confidence and looks right at the camera, where the other ones are more in the background and sort of look around nervously. There's a whole, idea I have behind that, which I'll probably share more about in the future. So again, I guess if you're interested in all that, make sure to follow me on Twitter, because I'll be sharing that over there first. And of course, as I said, I want to create these little videos where I just talk about what I've been doing recently. So if I do that again, you'll also be able to catch up with that here on YouTube, I guess. And that, I guess, finally leads me to this last render, which is already open here, but let's just close that quickly, which is just me starting to look into the detailed design for this character in the front. It felt so good actually to sculpt again after a while, because in the past days I've only been doing compositions, some blockouts of backgrounds. And finally, back in my comfort zone, I was really enjoying this. I really want to focus this time on actual design. Right now, as for design, there's not all that much. I think the hair has already a lot of expression. There's some accessories, but I really want to push this further in the future. This is something I'm still working on. But I guess that brings this video to an end. I showed you all the highlights, I suppose, from the projects that I've been working on in my private time recently. I will probably do more videos like this soon. Unfortunately, my summer holidays are about to end, so I'm still not sure how much time I'll actually have. But if possible, I would like to just do these frequently and give you a little update. So if you're into this, definitely be sure to check out the next video coming up on this channel. And let me know in the comments what you think about all this. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to hearing from you. So with that said, I'll see you next time.